Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the penultimate session of Taiwan Season Online Symposium 2020 Connecting with Taiwan. I'm Donald Hutera, speaking to you from the beautiful confines of my attic in North London, and today's session is a webinar which is going to be about Indigenous arts. It's the first of a two-part series today and Friday. What we've already had during this month-long Taiwan Season Online Symposium 2020 marathon is on Tuesdays, I've been doing informal interviews with 4 choreographers, each of whom would have had work being shown all month in Edinburgh at Summer Hall and Dance Space, 2 very key venues. Those sessions are over, but they are available via archive on Cultural Taiwan UK and Taiwan Season YouTube channels. What the webinars are 2-hour, 2-part sessions with experts in artistic programming, presentation, production. Today, this session is being translated via Wordly, if you need it, into English. It is an English-speaking session. And we welcome your questions in whatever comment box you might have access to, or comment window, throughout the entire 2 hours or so that we are with you, and we will field those in, filter those in. So the way today will work is the keynote speaker, who will be brought on to the virtual stage shortly, will have a 30-minute presentation which will give you a really rich and fascinating background into Indigenous arts in Taiwan. Then, and there'll be plenty of clips and imagery, I've seen them and they're really good. Then I will come back on stage and talk to her and deal with your questions as well as some of my own. Then I'll go away and Alice comes back and she has 2 special guests and they will be talking and presenting their work, and then we'll have another question and answer session. So plenty of time for you to have your curiosity piqued and ideally satisfied. So without further ado, thank you for being here. And I would like to invite Alice onto the virtual stage. Please join me. I can't hear you, Alice.
Okay. Hi again. Hi, I'm Alice. Nice to
Ni
see
hao.
you. Hi, Donald. How are you?
I am very good and really pleased to be seeing the full extent of what you have to offer, because I think there's so much territory to be explored here. So I'm really pleased.
Thank you, Donald. Yeah, today I have a big topic, so I'll do my best.
Of course you will. All right, see you later. And I'm going to be one of the audience members now. So long.
Okay, thank you. Hello again. I'm Alice. Today I will share my experiences working with Indigenous artists and my understandings toward Indigenous contemporary dance. So before I begin, I want to first acknowledge the Indigenous peoples who have lived on this island for thousands of years and who are still here, fighting for their land rights and cultural rights, also protecting our land with their traditional knowledge. And I want to take a minute to thank Taiwan Ministry of Culture and the facilitators who made such great job to make this happen. And thank you, Donald. You've done a great job too in this month. So, well, before I subject to art and dance, I want to give you a little history background about Taiwan indigenous peoples. Taiwan is an island located roughly 100 miles off the coast of southeastern China. Record shows Taiwan indigenous people have lived in this on this island for 6,500 years. When the colonists from Spain, Dutch, and Manchurian Empire of mainland China, they arrived Taiwan from 1624 to 1895. They only controlled part of Taiwan, and the control was loose. Japan, and indigenous peoples were the ethnic majority at that time. They had fought, yet sometimes cooperated with the colonists. When Japan took over Taiwan in 1895, they started their strong rules over old Taiwan. Indigenous peoples have suffered massacre, rape, forced migration, and miscegenation during the Japanese colonial period. And that has speeded up the loss of indigenous languages and cultures. After the Kuomintang, the Chinese Nationalist Party, came and governed Taiwan in 1945. They continued the assimilation policy from the Japanese colonizer and systematically discriminated against indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples become the ethnic minority and ethnic others on their island. So when we look back at the achievement of indigenous movements, which started from 1980s, the movement of the rectification, name rectification has shifted the colonized name from Aborigines, Shanbao. Shanbao means spontaneous inhabitants, then to the indigenous. So far, indigenous people are only 2% of Taiwan's population. 16 language groups and 750 villages are on the record. Yet, there are more groups remain non-status. So, we know our government has made great efforts to proclaim the indigenous rights and their rights to traditional territory. However, when it comes to conflicts or disputes, even misunderstandings, we know we're still under the influence of colonization. So just right before yesterday, at our Golden Bell Awards rehearsal, the anchor, the MC, just shows her attitude, which is a stereotype toward indigenous peoples. So now let me go back to my subject. Taiwanese indigenous dancing and singing are for rituals, for ceremonies, and sometimes for their amusements. Traditionally, singing and dancing are inseparable in both sacred or secular rituals. Our people sing and dance as a collective and round in a circle to praise the land and the ancestors. But during the Japanese colonization, the colonists have forced our indigenous people to dance and to entertain their rulers and to entertain the tourists. And after that, our government has held many national indigenous dance competitions, and that has attracted many young indigenous people to gather together, and to perform in these competitions. Apart from that, the anthropological records have helped to reconstruct traditional singing and dancing. And all this have affected our knowledge about tradition. But I do have questions. Who can dance tradition? What is tradition? And whose tradition? This question arises when we encounter the lack of cultural context in many commercialized singing and dancing. And the crisis emerged due to the blurred line between different indigenous cultures. Today, I will only focus on how indigenous artists implement the cultural context into their artworks and how do indigenous dance groups communicate with the audience through their choreography and production. So now for the next 50 minutes, I will introduce you some indigenous dance groups. Later, Watan Tusi, the director of Thai Body Theatre, and Feng-chih, head of programming department from National Theatre, will join me. I'm sure they can share more experiences and viewpoints about indigenous dance production. So now I will go to my PowerPoint slides. The first group I want to introduce you is Formosan Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe. Formosan Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe was founded in 1994. They are the most prominent traditional dance group in Taiwan, and they are greatly supported by many anthropologists and scholars. So I will show you some of their dance production here. Okay, this is a representation of Tsou's ritual dance. Tsou is one of our indigenous peoples. And this is a production telling stories about a Pulima composer and educator, Baliwakas. And this is a representation for Tsou's ritual dances. And it is also a production directed by Feng-chih Nayao. Feng-chih is the guest speaker last Friday, invited by River. And this production tried to reveal how our government treat Tsou's people. They just built a nuclear waste storage plant on Tsou people's homeland without their previous consent. Okay, this is a Inuumayang dance performed at our opening of Pulima Art Festival in 2018. So when we talk about this group, I would say this group is vital in the past 3 decades. And they have huge collections and archives for traditional songs and dances. Apart from that, many indigenous artists born after the 1970s have been trained in the schools. Western dancing and acting skills have helped to build their professional life. In fact, there are many new dance companies built and established since the 2000s. If we say Formosan Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe formed the criteria of indigenous performing art, then we would say these new dancing companies have shaped another scene in Taiwan's mainstream dance world. So now I will introduce you 5 indigenous contemporary dance groups. And they are Guo Xinzhuang Bangza Dance Theatre, Dimor Dance Theatre, Thai Body Theatre, Langasan Theatre, and Buraruyang Dance Company. I will show you 5 dance clips from the above dance companies, which will give you a quick understanding of how they put cultural elements into their production. So the first dance clip is from Guoxinzhuang Bangzha Dance Theater. Guoxinzhuang Bangzha Dance Theater was founded in 2005. They are the earliest founding contemporary dance group in the east coast of Taiwan. The founder Guo Xinzhuang teaches traditional dance in the school, and he has deep connection with his Bangzha heritage. Bangzha is also one of our indigenous peoples. And he is aware of the rapid change of his culture and the villages. So Zhuang's work has great compassion with the diaspora of indigenous young peoples. The work 038 has shown the nostalgia of young indigenous people who worked and studied far away from home. Now let's have a look. Okay, we'll start here, and the next group I want to introduce you is Cheng-Hua Dance Theater. Cheng-Hua Dance Theater was founded in 2006, and the founder and the artist director, Rosen Martini, started dance in the school. She has dedicated herself to promoting her Taiwan culture for decades. Rosen is the oldest child in her family. Traditionally, the oldest child in Taiwan culture has to stay home and to take care of her families. So this company is located in Timor Village, Sandiman Township in southern Taiwan. And they just renovated their studio and had their own festival recently. And the work I want to introduce you is choreographed by Baru Matili. Baru Matili is Luzum's younger brother. He is exceptional at deconstructing traditional movements, dances, and put it into his choreography. So the work we're going to see is as 4 steps. Let's have a look. Okay, and the next group I want to introduce you is Thai Body Theatre. This group was founded by Watan Tusi in 2012. He'll be here very soon. Watan was the director of Formosa Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe before he founded Thai. For me, I think Watan is a productive and multidisciplinary artist. He is a playwright, he is a weaver, and he is a traditional dancer and contemporary choreographer. So he has illustrated almost 70 foot scripts inspired by traditional dances and the movements at farming. So now we're going to see Thai Body Theatre's award-winning production, Terrace on the Hill. Let's have a look. We're gonna have two guests, Watan and Feng-chih. They'll be joining me later, and I'm sure they can share more experience about this production. Later, I will introduce you Langasan Theatre. Langasan Theatre was founded in 2012. It was founded by a Bangsa elder, Atau Palaf Langasan. Actually, Atau was the founding member of Formosan Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe. This company was unlike other dance companies. They consist of indigenous and non-indigenous dancers. And I know their choreography has more connections with the myths or the legends. So usually before this group perform, they will begin with a ritual to praise the land and the ancestors. The work we're going to see is Misali Sin, and let's have a look. Last but not least, Braruyang Dance Company was led by choreographer Braruyang Baklava. Braruyang is an experienced choreographer in Taiwan. He was co-choreographer in Crowgate Dance Theatre and used to work with Martha Graham's dance company in New York. After long travels in other countries, his desire to perform for his family has urged him to return to his hometown and founded his company. So I think for me, Braruyang is an expert at discovering the best for his indigenous dancers. And the work we're going to see is Luna. Luna is about paying respect to our Bunun warriors Bunun is also one of our indigenous peoples. Now let's have a look. Okay, so when we speak of indigenous contemporary dance, we will examine if the traditional essence is core to the production. Also, on the contrary, we will examine if the contemporary elements is in it. In fact, there are many audience from indigenous or non-indigenous. They would say they didn't understand indigenous contemporary dance at all. But I believe the 5 dance company above have overcome the challenges. We can see there are 5 common attitudes in their art practices. The first, they found their company in their hometown or near their hometown. The second, they name their language. They name their company in their language. For example, Dai means to watch, to observe in Telugu language. And Timor is Luzon's hometown. Langasam, the idea came from the sacred mountain of Tabalong. And Pularuyang means happy warrior in Taiwan language. Then the third, they do not ask dancers to wear traditional costume or put the totems on in their production. And the fourth, they don't just dance. Sometimes the dancers will sing traditional songs or popular songs from their villages. And last, and the most important thing is they spend long time to do field research. Sometimes they will spend weeks to stay and to get along with the peoples in the villages before they conduct the production. Most of all, being an indigenous artist means you have to carry those responsibilities to pass on the tradition and to send the messages. Now, I want to give you a little information about myself. I personally work in theater and documentary films for almost 10 years. And then I had a chance to work with a Formosan Aboriginal song and dance troupe in 2011. And then I joined Pulima Art Festival, which I'm still working there since 2013. So I will give you a little information about this festival. Pulima Art Festival is established in 2012, and it is a biennial festival. And I'm going to show you some works I have done in the past like 6 years. So this is my first challenge. When I joined the festival, we didn't have an artist director at that time, but we ran with the festival committee. So my first challenge is to program its second edition. So after doing researches, I proposed the theme urban tribes to the committee, and it was quickly accepted, while it reflects the diaspora of indigenous young people and the growing urban indigenous condition. Yeah, and the theme was quickly accepted by the committee. Then we launched theater programs. We worked with Timor Dance Theater, and we worked with Thai Body Theater, also Langasam Theater, Rariang Dance Company. All this happened in 2014. And we invited Golden Melody Award winners incoming Sambui, Sumin, Ili, and we have a cappella and traditional percussion band performed. All these groups performed in 5 different venues and outdoor spaces that year. So, and then for a third festival in 2016, we have an artistic director, yay. Tsou was our artist director at the time. He is from people of Tsou, and he is an indigenous movie actor and theater director. He has great passion on indigenous theater. So for that year, we started with the question, what is future's tradition? What is tradition's future? And we have many tryouts that year. We initiated New Talents Project, and we invited international indigenous dance company like this one. Atamira is from Maori, is a Maori dance company from New Zealand. And we have B2M from Tiwi Island, Australia. They performed at our opening for the third festival. So we initiate New Talents programs. And these programs happened in the Kaohsiung Fine Arts Museum. And we have forums and talks. And the most difficult thing is it's our first time to co-produce with Taipei Arts Festival. This work together is a collaboration between Timor Dance Theater and Black Dance from New Zealand. So Tsou actually quit his director position in 2018 due to his personal plan, and Nakao Putun joined us as a guest curator. Nakao has years' experience working with indigenous artists and held many local exhibitions. She proposed Miza'o. The theme is from Bangsa language, and that's our second challenge to make 2 artists in residency project in the villages, and commissioned our 2 local dance companies to work with artists from Australia and New Zealand. So these are the 2 collaborations. But to be honest, I have to say it didn't turn out well. But yes, we've learned a lot from it. For our 4th festival, we just expand the New Talents program to New Works competition. There are 15 emerging artists performed. Well, in the MOCA, the Contemporary Arts Museum in Taipei. Next, please. Again, we have forums and talks. Well, the most exciting thing is we have a 2-year exchange program with Iromboy. Iromboy is Melbourne's First Nations Arts Festival. This is the thing happened in Taipei. And Next year, in 2019, we went to Melbourne to exhibit and to give workshops and performances, live arts, concerts, and the most exciting thing, drag queen. This is a First Nation drag queen competition happened in Melbourne. So in conclusion, I know I didn't have much time, so I would go to the end. So I want to quote what Watan Tusi said. After years' dedications, we finally meet the time that the mainstream world came to learn our knowledge, not we pursue the knowledge from the mainstream society. Thank you, and I would love to have Donald back and lead some discussions. Hey, Donald.
Hello. That wasn't me applauding, but I can applaud very much. No, really, Alice, that was absolutely fascinating, and I have many questions, many ideas floating through my mind. So you mentioned you have focused on what I will call the top 5, but how many other companies are there beyond these 5 in Taiwan?
I didn't have the exact number, but there are more and more, I have to say. In fact, if I have more time, I might introduce another 10 groups. And what I'm excited about is there are more and more indigenous young artists who formed their dance companies in these 5 years. So probably 50, maybe. But in fact, there are some between traditional dance and some between contemporary. It is just like a blurred line. Yeah.
Well, when you mentioned that there were 15 emerging artists that got to show their work, it's a very encouraging sign. Am I right that partly the reason the emergence happens is because there is opportunity? You know, perhaps Pulima and your collaborators, you say, hello, we want to know who you are, where you are, what you are doing.
Exactly. So that's why we launched the New Talents program. It's like this program has helped us to find new and emerging artists. And then we have chance to program them and to help them to develop their works. And also, as you just saw what I presented, in fact, we have 23 emerging artists that were founded during our festival. And we did have help them. We commissioned them to do the work for next stage. And then we tour them to the villages or in other theaters.
That's quite a commitment.
Yeah.
What kind of team? What size team do you have, or how? It's you are obviously doing a lot, but there are other people around you who also contribute. How many people do you work with, roughly speaking?
Well, since we take place every 2 years, so for the first stage during the preparation time, we have in fact only three staffs for this festival. So that's why I not only program, I have to produce. Yeah, but then when our festival year comes, then we maybe have more than 30 people or volunteers.
Sure. And what about the Ministry of Culture or the government in general? I am guessing that it's quite supportive of this strand of artistic programming and practice and creation. things to do with indigenous arts. How much of a struggle or not do you have to get that financial, etc. support?
Well, that's a difficult question. I have to be honest, because this Pulima Art Festival was fully supported by Indigenous Cultural Foundation in Taipei, who also run a Taiwan Indigenous television and radio station. So the support might not, they don't give too much support on this festival because we still have TV programs. Yeah. So, but in fact, we have create a good relationship with the artist, and that's why we continue to do this. And in fact, there's no support from Taiwan Ministry of Culture since we were supported by that foundation, and that foundation is supported by the CIP. How do I say that? The Council for Indigenous Peoples, and the Council for Indigenous People is just like the same position with Taiwan Ministry of Culture.
Okay.
So yeah, we didn't get much support from the Ministry of Culture, but we did the Iromboy Pulima collaboration and the tour in 2019. Taiwan Ministry of Culture did support us quite a lot to tour. Yeah.
But I'm guessing that always you can use more support from whatever source.
Yeah.
No support is turned away, probably.
Right.
And you mentioned, and I hope you don't mind my asking, but it's so useful to hear when things don't go well, to know why they don't go well. You mentioned the residencies that just didn't work so well. I was curious, how could they have been better? If you don't mind sharing, because I think those kinds of mistakes, we learn. I love failure. I fail all the time, and I think it's a great thing. So
Yeah.
talk about the success of your failures.
Right. The success of the failures. Ideally, we give 1 month to do the artist in residency, but the international artists, they may not to stay that long in Taiwan. And the failure is the artists arrived Taiwan in around August, but we have lots of rituals and ceremonies that time. So we try to commission our local dance company to work with these 2 artists. But the dancers from these local dance companies have to apologize to attend their traditional ceremonies. So that means they didn't have enough time to rehearse together. And that has caused the problems. So that's why I said it didn't work out well. But if we have enough time for the artists, then I think we'll do better.
Because we've been talking in these webinars more than once, what has arisen is the idea that for the future, in time of COVID, et cetera, that longer residencies, locally focused, are probably both likely to happen and will be beneficial. So, it's interesting that you already experienced the lack of timing and how that undermine the best of intentions. Also, you've mainstream. I'm just thinking about marginalization and mainstream, the two M's, the two binary M's. And with this increasing proliferation of art making by indigenous artists, this idea about, it has to be accepted by the mainstream, where is Taiwanese society and culture, consuming society, how do they respond to this work within Taiwan? How do audiences respond?
Well, because I have to say Taiwan is a small island. We are easy to go from the cities to the villages. So in fact, our peoples have, just really close. They can easily find indigenous villages just with 1 hour drive or 2 hours drive. So, so I have to say, most of them know there are 16 official recognized indigenous peoples in Taiwan. But in terms of theater or dance production, I have to say most of the audience are from, the relatives or friends of these dance companies. And also there are like scholars and students who might be interested in indigenous issues. Then they will come to see the show. And that's how we build the relationship slowly, small. But yeah, we still have time and we have confidence.
And I have seen and greatly appreciated every opportunity at the Edinburgh Festival to see Timur. I saw 038. I think the 4 stars from the Times was me reviewing Langasan when they were, before I was involved in Taiwan season. Our friend, Gary Platt, who's been a regular attendee of these webinars, he asked a very good question, which if we could put that in the banner on the screen, it's about audiences, about the rich experience that foreign audiences have. But he wondered, and I think quite rightly, what do the dance groups experience and gain from having encounters with different audiences or international audiences? What is the pleasure or the edification for them? What do they gain?
I can respond it in 2 parts, from the audience side and from the dance group side. So I think for the audience, I believe they are excited to know there are indigenous peoples in Taiwan, and their dances are unlike any other dance companies because they carried their own cultures in their production. So they have, like for example, Timor, Langasan, and Dai, they performed at, also the Guoxinzhuang Bangzha Dance Theater. They all performed at Edinburgh Festival Fringe before. So they did received many comments and responses from the audience. And I have to say, they all welcome the critics and opinions from the audience, no matter it is indigenous or non-indigenous, because communication and exchange are the most important, are the most crucial thing for these dance groups. No matter the audience understand or not, all the information will give these dance groups more ideas to, to learn how to communicate with others. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I most love about Taiwan season in Edinburgh, and this is particularly true at the venue Dance Space, is all of the groups that are presented there, they immediately after the show, and not everybody does this, they are in the foyer, in the entrance, ready to meet and greet their audience. And I've had emotional reactions and have had the embrace. I've needed to talk and cry and share and whatever. So that kind of exchange, I do recognize how valuable that is on simply on a human level, let alone professional level. But no, it's all about greater understanding. I would think ultimately about what's different and what's shared, and how we can recognize both things and balance them with beauty and sensitivity and strength. And those clips you showed were so enticing. It's like I feel teased. Like I want to see the shows that I don't know the full thing. So how much international touring is there generally for Indigenous artists in Taiwan? Not just Edinburgh, but how many other places has the world embraced Indigenous or welcomed Indigenous artists? How much of the world?
As far as I know, the Timor Theatre, they toured a lot. They've been in Festival of Avignon, of course, and middle, yeah, Mexico, right? In Mexico and Japan and Belgium, yeah, and Thai has been Indonesia, India, and yeah, Edinburgh, of course, yeah. Australia. Yeah, Australia. I totally forgot that. What happened to me? Okay, so and Guoxinzhong Bangzha Dance Theatre have been in France and Edinburgh. Yeah.
But again, there's always more touring is welcome. It will be interesting to see how this is accommodated in the new world we occupy now.
Yeah.
We've had a very good question from Lizzie Song. What are the greatest challenges for curating Indigenous movement and tradition into contemporary choreography? And do you have any examples of a company's creative process?
Well, that's a good question, but I want to leave it to our artists. Is that possible?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Watan or Feng-chih can tell more about this.
And also address the whole audience question as well. I'm also interested in the politics of art making. The rights that are essential and necessary for Indigenous artists that apply to everyone. I guess what I'm really asking is how much political motivation lies underneath the creation, and how overt or how subliminal is that sometimes? Are political issues addressed in the work? Is the work simply by existing political? You want to talk a little bit about the politics of all of this?
I have to say, all of the artworks from Indigenous artists has the hint to fight against our government. That's what I thought, because they can't speak their native language in public. I mean, it's not forbidden, but because they become the ethnic minority. And if they want to speak native language, they have to go back home, go back to the villages, and to speak with their families. That's the only chance. And there's a huge topic about the traditional territory that hasn't been solved. There are always conflicts about private territory or public territory. And some of our indigenous peoples live in a national park, but which is their traditional territory. So I have to say, most of our indigenous artists or dance productions, they will have a little not wish, but I think they try to put more message that we are still alive. We are still here. And look at us. We used to be the dominant, not dominant, the owner for this land. And try to understand us because we know how to treat the land well. So that's what I saw during my, the programming experiences.
And I guess are there ever works that maybe on an artistic level, how many works fail, or is there bad work? I hesitate to use that expression, but as a critic, I have to make those judgment calls. Are there works that don't fulfill all of their potential, and how is that dealt with? I'm back to failure again. I'm tired.
Well, I think yes, there are failures. Like I just explained the collaboration. I think collaboration is the most difficult thing between different artists. So I just show you on my presentation. There's a work called Together from Timor Dance Theatre and Black Dance, who is very famous in New Zealand. And
Black Grace, right?
Yes, Black Grace.
Yeah.
And actually, just from the beginning of their, collaboration, and they had great fight. And since they didn't have enough time to communicate, and because of the different expectation, so that makes this work like. So because we invited that one, we co-produced with Taipei Arts Festival. So I have to say this work is just like it's like a double bill. For me, it's not really a collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
But since these two are mature dance company, so they did their work well. So for me, it's still, for the audience, I think they still enjoy the show. But in terms of the collaboration, I have to say it fails. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead, continue.
So there are other examples. Yeah.
But it's inevitable, isn't it? And I think it can be very useful, again, to talk about things that don't work and why, still with respect and with an appreciation of the attempt. I think back to what Akram Khan once said about fusion, which was a buzzword. I don't know if it's still buzzing, but I asked him about the fusion of tradition in Kathak dance and South Asian and contemporary work, and he said something like, well, actually, Donald, I think it's a confusion. So he talked about the confusion rather than the fusion, and sometimes those confusions, abrasions will happen, and little scars will form and little tears, but those can be so productive and still entertaining, even if they don't entirely take you into some transcendental place. Mm-hmm. But I thank you for answering that honestly. Maybe we have time for one more. Let me see if there's any comments coming in from the audience. Yes. Here's another question from Gary. Do the dance groups ever experience resistance to developing, it went away, and renewing the cultural dance forms into a contemporary framework? In other words, is progress always welcome? Very good question.
Yes. Yes.
And we can bring this question back, and I think we should, just like the audience question.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to do that?
Yes, that'd be good.
All right.
Yeah,
So
it takes time to think. Yeah.
of course. And we are now at the halfway mark of today's webinar. So now is a good time for me to disappear and you to proceed with this very good trailer for Pulima. Am I right? Is that next?
Yes.
And then you'll return with your guests.
Right.
So see you later.
Okay, see you later, Donald.
Okay.
So now I will play the video about Pulima Art Festival for you to understand what we have done before. Let's have a look.
Pulima 是排湾族语，手艺精巧的人。
艺术有这样的温暖，艺术有这样的反思性，有这样的创造力。我们怎么去启发，让我们可以再有更创新的方式去思考、反思跟行动？
每一个人都有自己属于灵魂最真实的存在，看见它，我们在做艺术创作的过程当中，就是对的，就会被肯定。
艺术它就扮演一个角色，不断的往前，然后是让人们再去思考比较有创意的方式或创新的方式，让我们重新思考如何去行动，如何去观看。
让更多的原住民青年艺术家知道，当我们在创作艺术的过程当中，我们在省思自己的生命价值的时候，能够从头从底去观看自己原住民身份对艺术创作是怎么样的展现。
我们这个世代原住民青年的一个，不管对表演艺术还有对肢体的一个新的说话方式。
Hello, everyone. And hi.
Hello.
Watan
Yeah.
and Feng. Nice to see you here.
Yes.
Do you like to say hi to the audience and introduce yourself a little bit? Watan?
Kanan suai empanamu ya kuadan Tusi penaku adang suasan tiam kastu mi tanam heni. Hello everyone, I'm Watan. I'm Telugu from Suasan community in Hualien. I'm the artist director of Thai Body Theatre now. I founded Thai Body Theatre in 2012. In our Telugu language, Thai means look. All people say always say, look as you do and everything will be okay. So I use this word as the name of the company. Yeah.
And Feng, will you introduce yourself a bit?
My name is Feng-chih Tsou, but you can call me Feng. I work at the National Theatre and Concert Hall, Taipei, Taiwan, for quite some years. I have held several positions in the theater, such as marketing, public relations, programming and production. Now I am the head of the programming section. And the NTCH introduces international and local programs, but one of our significant mission is to contribute resources to our local artists in the making of their work. So we mostly do commissioning work, but in some exceptional cases, we do house productions, which is the case with Watan, that I work as a producer.
Wow. So my first question is about Watan.
Mm.
You were the director for Formosan Aboriginal Song and Dance Troupe.
Yeah.
And then you leave them and you founded Dai Body Theatre. Why do you want to start your own dance company?
Okay. Before that body theater, I worked with Formosa Aboriginal Song and Dance tribe. I have met many people and been to many places. Then everyone considers the loss of our tradition, but I have been thinking, how could we carry on ancestors' legacy if we can't provide ourselves in the life? Also, are there any other possible creative approach of indigenous art apart from reproducing the songs and dancing? This is why I set up the body theater and what we are trying to explore now.
So that means Dai Body Theatre has different approach to share indigenous culture, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us more on that?
Well, I don't use my words on stage to pass or promote indigenous tradition, because I think culture exists in its own context. We might have shown our songs and dance on stage 12 years ago, but that is fast and it is done. Indigenous community have their own ways on the nowadays. I'm more focused on what tradition means to me and how I move forward with it.
Good word.
Yeah, for example, sometimes I see production that's trying to engage indigenous arts or culture. The creator use indigenous arts as material and thinking that enough to call the work indigenous theme related. It's such shame. Yeah, because they don't see the essence and richness of indigenous art.
Wow.
It happens in cross-cultural production, especially when non-indigenous art working with indigenous art. There is a huge gap, yeah, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I totally feel that.
Yeah, easily between the imaginary work and real outcome. The gap is usually from the imagination of the other. Yeah. So I have been thinking, can we find our own way of speaking by body and then traditional songs and dance? After all, traditional song and dance have its context in specific times and space. Besides, I don't wish to see them as some anthropological or mythological. What's difficult?
Yeah, anthropological and museological. Wow.
Yeah.
What a long word.
That is detached from reality.
Right.
So we are thinking if we could find new training methods, then we will skill or extract the quality texture of our bodies and present them on stage. This is where our food scripts comes from. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of food script, I know most of your dancers are not of Western dance techniques, right? So you've created a food script. In fact, I have 3 illustrations of the food script. So can you just, as you can see on your screen, yeah, it looks complicated, but maybe it is simple. I don't know. Watan, can you explain a bit more about this?
Yes, I spent 2 years on field research and examining the relationship between the feet and land. And I have documented over 60 sets of foot movement, with each round of creative deconstruction and reconstruction, new forms of the body and dance emerge in my work.
Again, I know there are some audience responding that they didn't understand your work. So because it is neither tradition nor modern dance. So can you tell me and tell us the challenges you've been met?
Yeah. Of course, there have been problems because I was expected to make work and to deal with cultural translation. I might have considered doing so in my early days, but not anymore. Because I found it too old. If I translated tradition for some certain people in my works, it's getting away from my original intention. Which is to search a new body language from traditional songs and dance, and show people that there's another kind of indigenous body presence. That is a difficulty I have made from outside, and I don't really have any problems in my community. That food script is well received in our community. They accept recognize our intention, and they know we doing something. What's that something? This something is not about tradition, but about us. This is a very difference of intention, and this is difference of internal and external views. Back to translation. I'm wondering, does it take a stage work to deliver, and are there other ways to perceive our words? These are the challenges. Very big challenge. I have at the moment.
Well, okay. Let's talk about the work Terrace on the Hill. We just played the video previously, and it's a collaboration between Dai Theater and the French percussionist Roland Oze.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, Feng, can you, since you are the producer for that production, can you share us the experiences and why you put Watan and Roland together?
So in 2016, it came to the attention of the theater that Watan had moved back to Hualien, a town on the east coast of Taiwan, and had established his own company 4 years prior with the fellow previous member from Formosa Aboriginal Song and Dance troupe after the troupe was disbanded. So with little subsidy from the government at the time, they worked hard to create and develop Watan's unique choreographic method and training system, which was inspired from your traditions, and which he called food scripts. So we were aware that Watan has his own expertise, but yet was only taking alternative steps. So we proposed that to accompany him on this journey. So then turn to Roland. At the time, we invited French composer and percussionist Roland Oze to perform his work, Sama, with Ahushi. And Ahushi is an exceptional dancer trained in Indian classical core dance. And Roland was enthusiastic to carry on his artistic journey in an Asian context. So he appeared to have a good understanding of the immense variety of the Asian cultural settings. And we consider him could be a good matching for Watan. So, and we knew Watan had never worked with people from outside his community. So we proposed him a task and challenge to both artists to bring them together and to see how the journey could take all of us, not only you, Roland, but also the National Theater. So we knew this journey would be new, but with faith, we will reach our destination, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. So how about you, Watan? I'm curious that how do you work with Roland?
Go hiking.
Okay.
You know, I don't know what happened. Yeah. So I don't have any preceding expectation to him. Yeah, I knew he's coming, but not sure what for. I thought, well, let's see how it goes. Yet when he arrived, I was panicked. I thought, okay, now what? And what are we doing to do? And where are we going to start? Then I say, okay, let's go hiking. So we went hiking to Dali. Yeah.
I know there are some images that yes, you're on the way to Dali, right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Maybe it's because of that Dali is an agricultural community. The lifestyle there remains traditional. For Roland, he feels that the surrounding goes from modern to tradition along his way from city to Dali. And we saw Asia Cement Corporation blasting mountain for quarry on our way. And he also learned that our people cannot repair our own house without having national park permit. So stupid. Yeah.
Right.
He finds all these are paradox. Then we send the theme on the path from modern to tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I can also add on that. Roland is a quick thinker. So remember, the next day when we return from Dali, we sit in front of your studio.
Yeah.
And Roland suggests that we should share our stories from modernity backwards to tradition, just like our experience of mountain climbing. But this is also a way that we think how we live in modernity and what modernity brings us when we leave our traditions behind. And what's our relation to it, and if we should get connected to the spirit of the past again. So very soon Roland came out with the concept of image on stage, and also 4 phases in the work, which remember?
Yeah.
Today?
When
Today, the 4 phases?
No.
Today, after today,
Yeah.
before tomorrow, and tomorrow. Yeah. So this was Roland's second visit, and but also the starting point of your choreography method, right?
Yeah. When he returned to Taiwan for the 3rd time, I had already done all the choreography works.
Mm-hmm.
His music joined after. That was his idea. He said that his music should not come in before dance. Yeah, he don't want to interfere nor lead this piece. Instead, he want to follow my lead.
So he followed your lead.
Yeah, I certainly sense the difference between us, not in culture, but in professional practice. He is a well-trained Western percussionist, and we are traditional indigenous music and dance performance. That's kind of difference. Yeah.
Sounds like you did met some difficulties for this collaboration, and it's your first time to do a collaboration work, right? So, and you met a Western artist. So how do you deal with this situation?
I do feel annoyed and disturbed because its agreement is a collaboration of 2 creators. Since he is the other creator of this production, maybe I should take his input into consideration. The work might be changed after my reflection. So I think about what he said the night before, and because we think in the next morning, yeah, and he come in for rehearsal in the afternoon.
In the afternoon.
Yeah. And he will see the rehearsal and share his thoughts. There is his idea, yeah, and we try them, and we move forward like this. Then the piece is done. For me, the work is done, but the journey is not ending. Because it's the first international collaboration production. So it is just a beginning, yeah, then a long way to go.
Yes. We have prepared a dance clip of the Terrace on the Hill. Should we play it again?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's. Well, I think according to what I just said, there's a question from Rob that it is about, do you feel your work is recognized enough as contemporary dance, contemporary performance? So do you feel you are still labeled as folk or traditional dance company? I have to say this question is
Mandarin.
because you said your intention is not to perform tradition.
Yeah.
So you tried another way. So you use the foot script as your instrument, right? So do you still feel you
Define your work as contemporary performances. If I can say something from my point of view as an audience, I would think that Watan's work is, you can express your thoughts, but I would say that first. I think Watan's work is contemporary performance. I remember last time when I saw your work, how should I say I love you? I was very touched because it made me a connection to the somehow in a way in the 极简主义 minimalism, because in his work there is a simple repetition of the dance or some movement and some motif, and with their songs, with the singing of the dancers, so beautiful. So it just reminds me the minimalism instead of the tradition, the folk or the indigenous dance in the past. So for me, from my point of view, I think Watan's work, I'm sure that it should be defined as contemporary dance, but you can share about your thoughts.
我不会认为我是传统的
Yeah, I think what I just explained in Mandarin, so I would translate it a little bit. He doesn't feel he's performing tradition.
因为传统不需要放在舞台上，对我来讲。
Because tradition is not for it's not
to be
on the stage, right?
Yeah.
It was in their life.
So you think you are a contemporary dance group, not a folk.
Not folk, yeah.
I hope we answer the question, but yeah, if you want to ask more, just feel free to leave your comments or questions. Yeah. So that next question is to Feng. I know you're producing another work, Ali Ali Ida. It is scheduled to premiere next April.
Yes.
Wow. And it is as part of Taiwan International Festival of Arts as well as part of Taiwan Week program. right? It's a collaboration between Dai Body Theater and the Indonesian artist Eko Supriyanto. So, what is the purpose you put them together?
I would say, first of all, we were encouraged by the positive feedback of Terrace on the Hill to carry on a collaboration. And we have seen how far Watan can go artistically when resources are available to make it happen. But usually at this point, the role of the National Theatre is done and off they go. But circumstances conspired us to afford us another opportunity to work with Watan to further his work. So in 2017, in a dance platform hosted by National Theatre, where we premiered Terrace on the Hill, we also presented Eko's two acclaimed works, Cry Jalolo and Bala Bala, which had been touring internationally a lot. And Eko Supriyanto is one of the most leading choreographers in Indonesia. He was trained in classical core dance and martial arts and contemporary dance. But in his work, he interrogates tradition in his culturally diverse community. So we introduced him to Watan without knowing they actually have met a couple years ago in Indonesia in one of the dance platforms. So that evening they talked about but then they didn't have the chance to sit down and really talk. So that evening at the dinner, remember, they talk about work, life, career, personal developments. At some point they were talking about identity and indigenous identity. Eko is of indigenous and Javanese heritage, but he mentioned he would not consider himself as an indigenous artist. He didn't want to be labeled. It's not because he denied his identity, but because he believed identity is not the only way to get to know his work. Nor does identity should mislead the audience as the only approach to understand his work or confine the subjects that he wants to talk about in his work. So this was a very interesting conversation and also a critical reflection for Watan. So we trust that this conversation should carry on. So the second collaboration began.
I think Feng did point out I think it's a huge topic of personal identity. Yeah, because this we should have another talk maybe next time. But well, and Watan, how do you feel about this challenge? You accept this challenge, right?
Yeah. I have been curious about Eko after seeing his Kwajalolo in 2014. And back then, Rarian was there at theater as well. He noticed that Eko's company and Dai have many similarities. I myself, I very interesting to see how he used his own male dancer bodies. Yeah, I've been curious since then. I saw Eko's new work, Bala Bala, in Taipei in 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. We met at dinner. We talked about identity.
Identity.
Yeah. Identity. The field research he did in an indigenous community in Indonesia, and the questions he had after research. He gained the most from those questions, but not traditional songs and dance. That's a very different approach. Yeah. He also mentioned that I was as a phase. Like he used to be, then we talked about the possibility to work together. Different from last experience with Lola. Yeah. This time I picked 5 dancers from his company. Yeah, and he picked up from mine. And
two
Yeah, true.
dance from
True.
your
Yeah,
company.
yeah. I went to Indonesia twice, but I don't know what I was looking for because Indonesia is a very, very huge country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the dance I missed court dance performance. Yeah.
Wow.
I have zero knowledge about Indonesia court dance. It's very beautiful. From
Right.
yeah,
Court
very
dance
power.
is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's true.
My plan was to collect cultural information and see if there anything I can use in work or I relate to. That's the original plan. But now it's been interrupted by COVID-19.
Yes.
COVID-19.
Well.
Now I can't go to Indonesia anymore.
Yes. Otherwise, we were supposed to be in Indonesia. You were supposed to be doing some research with ECHO, and our first rehearsal should be done in April. But let me add something on that. This time the project is different from last time with Roland because this time Watan and ECHO, they both are choreographers, so they have different cultural contexts and training backgrounds and working method. So that's why at the beginning we discussed that they should make work with each other's dancers. From this way, they still can take care of each other and they can mirror themselves through the reflection of working with the other dancers. So. But again, this is the first time that you work with dancers outside of your indigenous community. So this is another challenge for him. Maybe we can see some images of their workshop with the other dancers from in January. So this image shows how they went to the other studio and how they do the workshop. Well, they did the workshop and exchange the way they are working with the dancers. But very quickly after the two workshops, we realized that we need dramaturge in this team to have someone with a professional point of view in case that there is issues relating to cultural interpretation. So we have Uncle Hans, who is based in Belgium, but he himself is also a choreographer. But he has done a lot of research and have been very active in Southeast Asia. And we have another dramaturge who is privileged with Tam Fu Kun, born in Singapore, and Fu Kun is now resident in Taipei as a curator of Taipei Art Festival. So he himself is also an Asia cultural researcher. So the two dramaturgists joined together and accompanied with us in the rehearsal process and to discuss the work with us. So before the COVID-19 spread, we have had two exchange workshops in Solo, Indonesia, and Hualien and Taiwan. And ECHO actually has done a lot with your two dancers from Taipei. So we also feel his idea about his progress with the work. So maybe we can also show it now. And this was done in our last rehearsal in January.
We're gonna go to. Yeah. You want to show the video?
Yes.
From ECHO.
Yeah, from ECHO. He will talk about his progress with the dancers.
Yeah, great.
Hi, my name is Eko Supriyanto, dancer and choreographer from Solo, Central Java, Indonesia. My work for the last 9 years has shifted from a Japanese homeland to collaborative project with non-professional dancers, often young and from different community and cultures in far eastern part of Indonesia. Now, in a collaborative with Watan and his company, Thai Dance Theater, I'm very happy to be able to create a new performance together with two exceptional male dancers from his company. The starting point of our work is the spirit of sharing an intimate relationship. I'm introducing the Javanese traditional of ari-ari as a metaphor in this process. Ari-ari means invisible twins. It is like a profound bond between a newborn baby and its energetic twin, a protective connection that is very important element in Javanese philosophy. In the process of with these two Taiwanese dancers, we will use this metaphor to explore our understanding of taking care and protecting each other, how to be a guardian being, how to have a caring entity of our side, and what could be possible challenge such a powerful connection. After all, Ari-Ari also remind us that as a human being, we have an invisible spiritual connection to our ancestors, families, and our traditions. I'm very excited and looking forward for this great collaboration. Thank you.
Well, looks like an exciting collaboration project. Yeah, but in fact, we are now facing the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So, Feng, how do you carry on this collaboration?
We remain on regular production meeting and to report the situation and also to discuss the progress on both sides. But of course, we look for solutions to carry on the project. But Echo and Watan are obviously very different. Echo could do online rehearsal with the dancers, but it's not the way how Watan can do. So for Watan, he needs to have physical presence for the research and rehearsal. So Foucault introduced Watan that maybe Watan could do can do research in Taiwan. So Foucault introduced Watan an Indonesian pop culture and dandu, and suggest that maybe Watan can find traces in Taiwan and among the migrant workers. And this will enable Watan to do an on-site research in Taiwan. So you want to carry on to talk about your research?
Yeah, Foucault introduced me dandu. It's very interesting music and popular culture in Indonesia. And this music make you feel like moving your body. So I start working for there. Yeah, and but I spend a lot of time with new
Immigrants in Taiwan.
Yeah, because it's difficult to do research with migrant workers. Yeah, because most of them are caretakers. They don't have many of this. Yeah, the new the new residents are usually here by marriage. I'm curious about their life experience. And living home in families. The change of their lives from being a daughter to the wife to a mother. I haven't gone that far yet. That's the plan. So that's the plan. Yeah, they listen to dandu too. It's their comfort. Yeah.
Well, I think you're now trying others.
Yes.
But
This is our way to cope with the global issues and say, we will go on.
Yeah.
But the journey is again unknown. But we have the faith that this collaboration will carry on, despite the pandemic interfered our progress. But we'll see how it will take us, and we'll always find our ways to go further and reach our destination.
Right. Well, since we are almost running out of time, so the last thing, do you have anything you want to say to the audience?
Thank you.
You want to be able to speak your language.
Yeah. At first, I want to show my creation in the Telugu language, but I hope next time I can use Telugu language share my creation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. We look forward to that day. And thank you, Watan, and thank you, Feng-chih. And let's welcome Donald back.
Hello.
Hi, Donald.
Once again, I am loaded with questions. Hello. And with just ideas. I'm thinking now about how identity is very fluid for me, certainly. And so fluidity of identity, and maybe it's like being, I'll use a metaphor. It's like being a river and the rocks in the river. And there are certain heavy stones and rocks in the water, but the water's always moving. So that's my identity. And I wonder if that, how do you, Watan, how would you describe imaginatively your identity? Is that possible? So that's one question just to think about. Another is the tradition, that it is not, in traditional cultural expression, it's not necessarily necessary. It's not necessary to be on stage. I'll wait.
Sorry, Donald, can you say the second question again? Because we were trying to explain to Watan the first question. Yeah, so second question again, please.
About not being on stage, that usually traditional culture was not on stage. I know that's true for, many, tango, it started out in the milonga, not on stage. Hip hop was on the street. So when Watan talks about other ways to receive and perceive and present, it's quite interesting that we now are in this COVID world where we have to find other ways, sometimes virtual, online, but I think there are still other ways to have things, to not be in a theater, but to be someplace else. So I'm thinking about location. Also, I wonder if the foot scripts could ever be given to somebody from another place, another culture, to interpret as they chose. Is that even not to replicate, but just to absorb and adapt foot scripts in their own way? Or would that be considered undesirable or insulting, or not valuable? Also, I have for you, Feng-chih, questions about audiences. How do you gauge audience response when you present work, particularly work with an indigenous element or elements? And as somebody who makes these arranged marriages for artists, from different cultures, different places, how closely do you monitor the progress of those creative relationships? And a third question for you, Feng-chih, is about it springs from Rob's question about labels. And I'm thinking about marketing, what language or what imagery is used to convey tradition, modernity, et cetera, et cetera. Just, it's interesting to think about the marketing question. And my last thing, which I have to ask Watan, is about the visual side of Terrace on the Hill. Because I loved the way it looked, that little glimpse that I have of the floor and the background. I'm very curious. And Feng-chih, you could maybe answer that as well. But I'm interested in the visuals of Terrace on the Hill. So that's a lot that I've thrown in your direction. And answer what you think is most interesting.
Okay. Yeah, you want to start first?
Answer this or this or this one.
你对
Up to you.
OK， 我认同这个认
So,
同
sorry, we will just it's not easy to just speak in English. So I will help Watan to explain it in English. Okay.
其实我的认同到现在都是德鲁古。
Watan has a consistent or persistent identity. He recognizes himself as Telugu.
这样，然后我刚刚讲到说原住民文化不能到舞台上，我是指传统技艺这件事情。
In fact, what Watan just referred that traditional dance should not be on the stage. That is about the traditional ritual dance, because it should happen in the villages.
是啊，然后再来脚谱是可以给人家使用的，而且我觉得是很开放性很高的。
And the foot script, what I'm saying, it's very open. Everyone can use that and reinterpret it.
是这样子，可以吗？
And do you find other ways to maybe perform to or to deliver？ 就是去表现你的创作，有没有别的方法？不一定是线上的，也有可能是别的方法。当然线上这个方法，
就线上是指
对，虚拟，因为像现在疫情就发生了，那我们不可能用其他途径。
如果你要传达这些文化性的东西，还有没有别的？
到山林里面呢？
给观众。
哦，对啊，就是把观众带到山林里。
Watan said he welcomed audience to visit him, and he will bring you to climb to Dali, the mountains,
the mountain, do the mountain climb,
and to experience life in the villages.
Well, can I say that, I've been very privileged as a journalist to travel around to many places, and one of the ways that I most understand the art that I see on stage is by going to shop for food wherever I have traveled. I learn a lot about what is on stage by what's on the street or what's in the supermarkets or in the food stalls. And I also think about being in Finland and how doing the sauna, the Finnish sauna at night, and going naked into the lake, under the moonlight, it taught me so much about Finnish dance. So I welcome any chance to go in the mountains or anywhere else to absorb the land and the street, because that's where my understanding of artistic expression, it increases my understanding.
Yeah, just experience everything new in your life is the most important thing. Just like we experience indigenous cultures. Sometimes, for example, I will go to the rituals or ceremonies. If I were invited, then I will be a noble guest. 谦虚的 humble, sorry. Then I'll be humble when I saw all the rituals and ceremonies. And I have to say, I have learned a lot from their cultures, from indigenous cultures. Mm-hmm. So experience things, new things is the most important thing. So I think, as far as I know, Watan did the weaving, the traditional weaving in his daily life. And he has made a lot of beautiful clothes for his families. It's his daily life. And sometimes it is shown on the stage, but sometimes not. So, Donald, if you had chance to come back to Taiwan, just go and find him maybe you can learn how to weave in traditional way. That's another new thing. Yeah.
So should I carry on the question for me?
Yes,
In
please.
terms of the marketing things, Donald, you asked me my business secret, but I'm happy to share. Yeah. So basically, I don't see I'm working with indigenous artwork. I'm working with a work, but it's true that if you want to understand their culture, you need to have the cultural context. You need to have the background. So, so this comes also to my business secret is every time when we did a rehearsal, then I will take photos and put it on my Facebook, and then the people will know what we're doing, even from from the first rehearsal, a second rehearsal, and the audience or the people online, they will come. They kind of came along with us during the whole process until the premiere. So they have the context what we have been doing. And so this probably will also brought them to be curious about, so what's the work is going to be, because it's a collaboration with an artist from another culture, and it's National Theatre's project, and it's the National Theatre's house production. So this will bring the audience to be curious and see his work. So that's the way how we did kind of our marketing, if you are asking this.
Yeah.
Or bring the audience to the theater.
So to try and put that neatly, if you make the process transparent, it piques the curiosity of the audience, and they will want to come and see the finished result.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. Don't share it.
And how closely do you work to? Well, then you're there frequently. You do monitor or shepherd along very closely the working relationship.
Actually, I don't. Yeah. Actually, I don't. I facilitate what they need, but from my point of view as a producer, I don't talk about how they should create their works. I give them the comfortable environments, the conditions they need, and I just put them together, and then off they go. But of course, I will be assigned to see how they were working and what they were working, but I never talk to them what they should work, because I think this is very important to give them space, just like they have to give themselves, and they also have to give the other artists space. So of course we have to give them the whole space. We don't monitor, we facilitate. Of
course, good facilitation. And then I asked the question about audiences, and how do you gauge the effect or impact of any work that is presented on the audience? Where are they in all of this for you at the National Theatre and as a commissioning producer?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you mean where our audience? How should I?
Yes. How do you monitor? How do you measure their reaction, their response? How do you know how well engaged they are?
Actually, we cannot anticipate. We cannot anticipate any reaction until the work is premiered. So, but I have to say that the benefit of working with the National Theatre, that we have been building up our audience loyalty. So we do have a very good marketing support that we can try to bring this audience to come to the work. But I would say we really cannot anticipate the outcome of the work. So that was also a surprise to us, that it was also a surprise that in the end, Terrace on the Hill won the first prize of the Pulima Arts Award. We didn't anticipate that. We were actually very frightened before the premiere. Yes.
Well, and to go back to that question I asked, because I think it's very beautiful to look at, and I would like to know a bit more about how the visual side of it was developed.
The visual side, the visual materials, and the
Terrace on the Hill.
Yes.
The backstages.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So it was actually Yeah, you mean the visual of the stage, right?
Yeah.
So after returning from Dali, which we mentioned, and you saw the pictures that we went mountain climbing. So Roland, as I say, he is a quick thinker. So he immediately, let's say, we should have this kind of image. I think I actually never asked him, because I am a facilitator, I don't monitor, and I actually didn't ask him how do you come with the image. But I'm sure the image was inspired from his experience of mountain climbing, to see Dali, to see the sky, the land, the high mountains. So he came to the idea that the image on stage should be something like that can be connected to the land. So this where the images of the work came from.
And it's also very much about touch, because there's the shot of the person tearing the set or blackening the set. So
Yes.
that tactile quality is very it appeals to me very much as a viewer.
Yes. Yeah. And we have a very good set designer to work with us, Liao Hui Li. Yeah, so we work it out very quickly, the set. And so Watan's dancer also have to get used to the texture of the set, because in a lot of his work, the dancer had to stamp on the ground. So they also have to get used to the texture of the set. Yeah.
And but, no, go ahead, Feng-chih.
No, but it's beautiful, isn't it?
Very. I'd love to see it. Is it a work that could be brought back or revived, or is it too complicated? Is that even feasible?
Well, actually, it's not too complicated, because it's his dancers. They were all in the community. So if there is a chance, I will feel privileged to bring Terrace on the Hill. How about you? 你觉得呢？这把 Terrace on the Hill
好啊，我说什么嘛 ？Good.
Yeah, I'm sure Roland will be happy as well, because there were only 5 dancers on stage, and the set is done very economically, with very low budget. So actually it's not difficult. We just have to restaging and reproducing the work. Yeah, I myself really love to see it again.
And there was also a work called Red Earth, is that right? That we saw a bit?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just say a little bit, because I thought it also looked really interesting, what the dancers were wearing, those strange, beautiful costumes. And can you say just maybe a tiny bit about Red Earth?
对啊，我想要叫你讲一个。
他说有穿很特别衣服在赤足。
Well,
Donald, you were talking about the collaboration.
你为什么会穿那些衣服在身上？谁的 idea？
那个是卡里吗？不是吧？那个涂颜色的。
对啊，去捡那个，然后去做衣服的。So in terms of the Red Earth, this production is also a collaboration between Dai Body Theatre and the Australian choreographer Carly Shepherd. And so Carly was the artist we invited to do the residency in Taiwan. And she has worked like almost 1 month with Dai Body Theatre. So Carly came out with the idea to, collect the garbages and to put it, to reorganize it and to make it as their custom. Okay. And they painted themselves. The dancers painted themselves on their skin. So, yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. I'm just going to check if there are any questions, because we will be wrapping up very soon.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone just saw last week the production Forest.
Oh.
Yuling Chao saw the show Forest. So do you want to say just a little bit about your work, Watan Forest?
你可以讲一下那个
在说什么？
你要讨论一下那个主题，就是
用主语。
对你那时候不是用
哦，他是问这个吗？
他就想要你分享一下那个作品。
用主语讲吗？
不是没有，你解释一下。
哦，就是其实山没那么浪漫，对。然后你进到山里面之后，你才发现它是生存跟安全。
The mountains, you know, it's not as romantic as you thought. It is actually full of danger and risks. You might get hurt when you climb the mountains. So it's what Watan wants to say.
对，就是人进到山里面之后，你会发现原来很渺小，很小。
So you feel that you're actually so small in the earth, in the mountain land.
然后我们就发现我们只是自然界的某一个循环的环节。
And you realize you are just a small part of the natural cycle.
因为原来还没出现之前，山就存在了。
But because before the mountain is there, before we human beings are there, the mountain has been there for a long time.
是这样。
All right, thank you for explaining that. I just was curious, and because it's obviously recently been shown, yes, live in a theater in Taipei.
If I can add something on that, because Watan is from Turoko tribe, and Turoko is in the high mountain. So for him, a mountain is really has some affection. He has some affection to the topic.
Well, thank you. I feel very humbled, to use your word, Alice, by being here with you today, and I feel also enlarged in many ways. I've learned many things. It's been a real pleasure to be with all three of you, and I thank our audience for being with us for these 2 hours. And we will be having the final part of the Taiwan season online symposium on Friday, again with you in charge, Alice, and you will be looking very much at curating Indigenous work in Taiwan, but you'll also have some international guests. So thank you, everyone. It's been a real pleasure. Be safe, be well, be creative. 谢谢.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.